Matthew Golden, one of my favorite prospects coming out of Texas. He had an incredible game against Arizona last year in the college football playoffs. Just, big touchdown after big touchdown, big moment after big moment. I loved him all year. And I was a little, skeptical at first, like, okay, well, it's kind of a crowded wide receiver room. And guess what? It's getting less crowded because everybody's hurt in Green Bay. Matthew Golden is the truth. He's the only guy healthy enough to play.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
At the moment, you will not be able to do a bet on the television set. However, Emily made it very clear that's what we ultimately want to do. And we may do it sooner than later, where you will be able to put a sports bet on the service through your smart TV set with your remote control or with your voice, especially if a service like Alexa Plus, which is scheduled to go on Amazon Fire TV sets and other smart TV sets, actually happens.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. A recap of Monday Night Football goes down to the wire. We'll have it for you here on the show as we move on to the next week of the National Football League and some college football as well. Also the latest in injuries. We'll also hit on some Major League Baseball. On our show today, we got Bill Bender. The opening lines are out for this week in college football. How about those of you who played fantasy football in week one? Maybe you won, maybe you lost. That's okay. Joe Pisapia will be along with us. In addition, Brad Thomas will join us, of course, going over the latest in the NFL with sports betting. And Aram Layton with the upcoming show, Just Baseball, coming your way in a little bit over an hour and a half from now. He's going to join us to preview that show and also catch you up with the postseason races in Major League Baseball as well. Let's start off with our big sports betting story of the day. Kalshi strikes again. Boy, do they ever. $441 million for the non-sports betting company called the Prediction Market Company. My gosh, it does feel similar, though. Trading activity between the Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles in the season opener, $441 million in activity since then. That is crazy since the first week of the season. Of course, that would not include Monday night's game with the Vikings and the Bears. It took $200 million on Sunday alone. Why does this matter? This is a company that is operating in a sports betting space, but is not sports betting. And there are no basic regulations on whether or not they're allowed to take money or not. They just decided to do it. You can make predictions on sporting events and a lot of other things over on Kalshi's website. Not a commercial, by the way, for it, just stating facts. Okay, Monday Night Football. If you stopped watching at halftime, kind of like Sunday Night Football, you made a big mistake. 27-24, the Vikings rallied to come back and defeat the Chicago Bears. It looked like this was going to be Bears money line under the total for like 2 hours. And then all of a sudden, the Vikings stormed back. It was all J.J. McCarthy in the second half. You see Aaron Jones there. He also caught a big touchdown pass in the game. Definitely a tale of two halves in this game. What happened to the Bears in the second half? Did not play particularly well. Here's Kevin O'Connell, the head coach of the Vikings, talking about making the adjustments which led to the win.
When things aren't going well, things aren't going your way, how the defense, battled and kept us in the football game. Special teams made some huge plays. Obviously, Miles Price with some big returns, the field goal to give us a little bit of life there at the end of the first half. I was just so proud of JJ and our offensive group. There was a lot There's 1,000 things that we all can clean up. There's 1,000 things that myself and our staff will get cleaned up. We can all be better, but to come to this place, ton of energy in the building, find a way to just keep playing, just keep trying to find a way. And our guys, there's been some games here over these last few years where, we've demonstrated that, but tonight felt like there was something, new quarterback on the road, some new players throughout our team, really trying to figure it out together. And the way that we were able to do that, very, very proud of our team.
On the flip side, the Bears got off to a hot start, halftime lead, control midway through the third quarter. Then things fell apart for Caleb Williams and company. The offense was rolling under Ben Johnson. They also had a pick six, but Williams inevitably after the game said they need to do more to win.
I think first it starts with getting in and out of huddle. It starts with being able to just complete some easy passes, check downs, and things like that. Keep the drives going, and I think we did that in the beginning. And that's the hot start that you're talking about. And I think a few balls got batted. We had penalties and things like that, so it slowed the drives down. Slowed the momentum down that we had, and we got to get better at those.
Caleb, this series that ends with it being 3rd and 30, and then Kyler misses the field goal.
Yep.
What is the lesson from there in terms of the momentum change?
Yeah, the lesson there is get the ball past the line of scrimmage. I was trying to throw the ball away, and it just didn't get past the line of scrimmage because I knew we were in field goal range. I think I've been able to have a couple of those moments, and I've come up here and spoke to you all about learning from those moments, and I knew we were in field goal range, like I said, and just being able to get the ball past the line of scrimmage in that position, trying to throw it away, and try and keep us in field goal range.
Now, off the field, no stranger to news is Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins, and TMZ has another report yet today saying that Hill's estranged wife has alleged in court filings that he's committed domestic violence. The Dolphins receiver has said he has not done it and denied it. According to documents obtained by TMZ, his ex-wife alleges 8 separate incidents of domestic violence. He has not been charged, and it is unclear as to where this has headed for Tyreek Hill, although the Dolphins got off to a very rough start on the field, unrelated to Tyreek Hill. All right, tight end position, already thin in the National Football League, gets a little bit thinner by one. George Kittle, with a hamstring issue, is going to miss multiple weeks, according to head coach Kyle Shanahan, as he'll have to sit. He left the Week 1 game against Seattle early. Also, Brock Purdy, questionable with a couple of different injuries, shoulder and toe. We'll see if he ends up playing this week. An announcement made yesterday by the Giants. They had to do this 1 week into the season. Russell Wilson, 17 of 37 for 168 yards. Some speculation that maybe Jackson Dart would get the start this week for the Giants, but Brian Daboll, head coach of the Giants, put an end to that speculation yesterday.
You kind of left it hanging out there, so I think you have to start here. Do you intend to start Russell Wilson this week?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and after a game, it's an emotional game. It's a tough game. Didn't play particularly well, I would say, collectively. But in terms of making any of those decisions, really at any position or schematic changes, I'd like to, do it with a clear head and watch the tape. And again, like I said yesterday, that game just doesn't fall on Russell Wilson. You got to do a better job collectively, coaching, playing, but Russ will be the starter.
Oh, was that even ever really a decision for you?
Well, again, it's right at the end of the game, so I'm not going to say.
I mean, when you went back and watched it.
No, Russ will be the starter.
Let's move on to a trade in the National Football League. Bit of a surprise considering the season already underway. Running back Tank Bigsby traded by Jacksonville to Philadelphia. Jaguars apparently happy with their running back room, and also Denzel Perryman out indefinitely. Chargers linebacker could be placed on IR. We will see. All right, in college football, some controversy over the weekend in the Kansas-Missouri game. There was a play in the first quarter after Missouri's touchdown. The Tigers were flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct, and this issue has basically led to the Big 12 pulling the officiating crew off Week 3 because of a rules issue. They allowed a punt to occur on a free kick in violation of Rule 2, Section 16, if you have the book. The Big 12 officiating crew has been removed from its next scheduled assignment on Friday. So some issues there with the refs, and they'll get it fixed. Colorado is expected to make a quarterback change. Ryan Staub will go this week against Houston for Coach Prime. And yet again, another team fined. Mississippi State fined $500,000 by the SEC for field storming. Yesterday, good news for the Philadelphia Phillies. They've been waiting all season for this, and they got it. Aaron Nola, 6 innings pitched of shutout ball. How about that? 3 innings pitched, 7 strikeouts as they beat the Mets 1-0. Tyler Glasnow also pitched well, 7 innings for the Dodgers, past the Rockies 3-1. And Fernando Tatis Jr. had a sacrifice fly in the 10th inning, and the Padres beat the Reds by a final score of 4-3, with the Reds clinging to hopes for the National League wild card. Coming up next, we'll dive into the latest in college football. A very big win for Oklahoma over Michigan. Bill Bender will break it all down for you and me next. Don't go away.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
Remember these names: AZ Fudd, Olivia Miles, Lauren Betts. Depending on who wins that lottery, that's going to depend on who goes one. If Washington wins, it's Fudd. She's from the area. If Dallas wins, they're going to bring Fudd to play with, obviously, Paige. If Minnesota wins, I think they go Miles with the point. If Seattle wins, they go with Miles, and the same thing with Chicago.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I was looking at through my phone at first. I'm like, why is there such a delay? And why are we getting pitch hitters right away? Oh, the pitcher got thrown out for some reason. Maybe he hurt himself. But no, turning out and seeing a brawl was absolutely hilarious to let that one play out. Just the way it is sometimes in baseball. We don't get a lot of good fights and a lot of good brawls in anger, specifically from two teams that aren't going to the playoffs. So good on them for showing that moxie last time. But it's good to see a little bit of a brawl and a little bit of that passion here.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
If a game is on the line,
give me the Navy kicker.
Oh,
the guy's going into battle in 2 weeks. He can't make an extra point. Come on.
From a mindset perspective, yeah. I'm not. Listen, we thanked them for their service. I love them. Okay.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, if you have a bet and you have an academy kicker with a field goal or an extra point, you got to hold your breath.
27 yards. You know,
27 yards. The kid shanked it from like 30.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We've got the latest in college football with Bill Bender from Sporting News as we head toward another big week, and we'll review everything that happened and go over a little bit of the future as well. We'll talk some SEC football with a big win for one team on Saturday night. Bill, welcome back here to NewsWire. Let's take a look at the AP Top 25, where Oklahoma is the big mover this week. Of course, they played the biggest game on the schedule, fair to say, and ended up beating Michigan 24-13. So I guess we can start there. With the poll, and also if anything surprised you coming out of the announcement yesterday.
Well, I think Oklahoma trusts their quarterback. That's the big thing there. John Mateer, he's going to move into the Heisman frontrunners of sorts. And if you look at him through 2 games, 62.9% passing on passes of 10 yards or more. I thought Oklahoma coach Brent Venables trusted him to throw the ball down the field. He made a huge pass in the third quarter. And then Bryce Underwood in Michigan, still a work in progress. You know, Sharon Moore had a conservative game plan on the road. It didn't really work. Bryce has work to do throwing the ball down the field, and it showed. And a huge win, like you said, for the Sooners and the SEC on a weekend where the SEC was 4-0 against other Power 4 schools.
Well, the SEC was, certainly in the forefront this weekend, and maybe not for the right reasons. Because, Bill, when I was on the show, when you were on the show last week, you asked me about the Gators covering that big line. And I remember saying to you, well, I don't know. Like, they don't seem to score a lot of points to get that done. But, Bill, I mean, I felt like I was watching, my survivor pool in the NFL disappear in week 1 as the Gators lost to USF 18-16. Second straight year the Gators have lost early in the season to sort of end any chance to win a national championship, unless that they were to win every game the rest of the year and then get to the college football playoff. Look, I mean, it's the same stuff again with Billy Napier and some weird, play calling at the end of the game, to say the least. I mean, is there anything that you could give me positivity here? Because I look, as a Gator fan, as everyone knows myself, this was about a crushing of blows you're going to get, paying a team $500,000 to lose at home.
Maybe don't look at the upcoming schedule then. With all the ranked teams that are there, 3 straight games against top 10 opponents. I think the penalties were killer. Obviously, on the last drive, having 11 penalties for 103 yards, some questionable play calling when you're trying to put the game away. I think you're going to see some odds on Billy Napier and his hot seat. We're right back where we were a year ago at this time when they started 0-2, and they fought through it in November. And Craig, I don't know. Too many tough games against ranked opponents, and there's going to be a lot of chatter about names ranging from, can they take a run at Dan Lanning? Can they go get a Lane Kiffin? Does even Brett Bielema will be turning up as a name? I mean, there are going to be a lot of suggestions to replace him, and I think it's going to be very hard to control the levels of toxicity in Florida over the next couple of weeks against this very tough schedule.
Yeah, I just don't think there's any getting out of it this time. I mean, last year, benefit of the doubt, I guess, a little bit, but this time feels hard. All right, so now on the flip side, let's go to University of South Florida. I mean, credit to them. They beat Boise State and the Gators back-to-back weeks. They're ranked for the first time in 7 years. And when you think about teams in the state of Florida, Bill, the Gators, the Hurricanes, certainly the Seminoles are there. You see them ranked again this year. And I would even say the University of Central Florida, in terms of football, moved ahead of USF for a while. But this may be the Bulls' year, will it not?
They're going to have a really compelling case. And I know the spread is what it is against Miami this weekend, but their ability to play really good defense, quarterback Brown played very well, under control, composed in these last 2 games. And Alex Golesh is a name that's going to turn up in a lot of coaching searches as coaches drop off because of that up-tempo offense. He has a background. He was at Tennessee, and people like that kind of style of play. So they have been the darling over the last couple of weeks. That American Conference race with Tulane and Navy will not be easy, but I think this is a team and a program that could definitely make a run. And I don't care if they lose Saturday to Miami, as long as they keep it competitive and win the American Conference, they'll have a very good shot at that Group of 5 playoff berth.
Yeah, definitely a great start for them. Best I've seen in years. All right, so what's going on with Clemson here? Let's get to them for a minute, because, I mean, look, we talked about it last week. Everyone sort of predicted that, Clemson may not win by 60, but they're certainly going to crush Troy, right? They were down 16-0 in this game. They had to come back and win 27-16. So forget about even covering or having them in a teaser or anything like that. You just can't feel real great about what I've seen.
Yeah, it's the worst when and during the rain delay that you're not getting the cover in that game, which it was a 32.5-point spread. So for Clemson, it's really an interesting weekend coming up. It was some of that game against Troy a hangover from LSU, possibly, but they got it together in the second half. Cade Klubnik was better. Their receivers, Wesco, really stepped up, had a big game, and now they play Georgia Tech this weekend on the road. And this Georgia Tech program, that line's dipped a little bit. I think there's a little bit of backing at Georgia Tech, especially if Haynes King plays. So it's time for Clemson to go stand up.
Meanwhile, top teams in the country had no problem with their cupcakes, I guess it's fair to say. Ohio State, no offense to Grambling, but they beat them 70-0. Penn State, their defense was huge, 34-0 win. And, obviously LSU's game with a bigger spread was not covered against Louisiana Tech, but you would expect a little bit of a pullback after their win against Clemson. So you got to feel real good. Number one, number two, number three teams in the country. I think that's the way that it should be.
Yeah, I mean, they all look good. And I mean, Ohio State, it's obvious what they have there with Julian Sayin and what he's been able to do. Penn State, Georgia, LSU, that top four, all kind of took care of business. LSU, a little bit of a hangover too, obviously. And now they bring Florida in there. I think they'll have their full attention. But Julian Sayin throwing the ball down the field, even against Grambling, it was good to see. I think that offense is dangerous. That defense is complete. It's going to be very difficult to beat the Buckeyes in Columbus, which my Bobcats play there this weekend. Maybe I got ahead of myself a little bit.
Yeah, but I think your Bobcats had a big upset, right, this past week against West
They
Virginia.
did.
Am I right
They
about that?
did.
Yeah.
Huge 17-10 win at Peden. So they have some momentum, even though they're heavy underdogs going into the shoe this weekend.
Don't tell anybody, but I pay attention to all the schools in college football here, Bill. Great stuff as always. We'll catch up with you again later in the week. Thanks again.
I appreciate it.
All right, coming up next, it's time for the Sports Grid Sound Off, a preview of Georgia and Tennessee, Texas A&M, Notre Dame. When we return next, you're watching NewsWire here on Sports Grid. We got you covered. Don't go away.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Matthew Golden, one of my favorite prospects coming out of Texas. He had an incredible game against Arizona last year in the college football playoffs. Just, big touchdown after big touchdown, big moment after big moment. I loved him all year. And I was a little, skeptical at first, like, okay, well, it's kind of a crowded wide receiver room. And guess what? It's getting less crowded because everybody's hurt in Green Bay. Matthew Golden is the truth. He's the only guy healthy enough to play.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
Donnie, the season is 6 months, 5 if you check out in September. You're going to have a bad month. The Yankees had a horrible month. That is true. But beyond that, their regular season looks okay. They're going to win their 90 games or maybe a little bit more and get to the postseason. What is everybody freaking out about?
Everybody freaks out. It's a Yankee tax and Yankee fan tax as well, where every single season you enter into the equation going like, it's championship or bust.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember these names: AZ Fudd, Olivia Miles, Lauren Betts. Depending on who wins that lottery, that's going to depend on who goes one. If Washington wins, it's Fudd. She's from the area. If Dallas wins, they're going to bring Fudd to play with, obviously, Paige. If Minnesota wins, I think they go Miles with the point. If Seattle wins, they go with Miles, and the same thing with Chicago.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on Sports Grid. Let's do some college football previews. Georgia, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, and Florida against LSU. We'll hear from the head coaches in all three spots involved in the game as we do the Sports Grid Sound Off. All right, let's start off with Georgia, Tennessee, two teams in the top 15 squaring off. Both teams have looked really good at the start of the season. For the Georgia Bulldogs, they probably have the tougher challenge when you think about it. They got to go to Neyland Stadium and play at Tennessee going into week 2 of the college football season. No doubt it's a place where they've had trouble in the past. Can they pull this one off? Well, Kirby Smart gives all the credit to the fans at Rocky Top and says his team is up for the challenge.
Yeah, really excited about this matchup. One of the toughest places to play in all of college football. It'll be as loud as it ever is. It always is. One of the loudest in the SEC for sure. They've done a great job. Josh has got a great team and program. They're a playoff team from last year that we've had some really, really physical games with. It'll be no different. They are built around toughness, running the ball and stopping the run, which they're very good at both. And I think people have a mistake about their offense that it scores so many points, but they are very physical. And you look at last year's game between both teams, both lines of the scrimmage were extremely physical, and it's been that way every time we've played each other. So won't be any different this time. Going to a tough place to play. First game on the road in the SEC. When you open up on the road in the SEC, it's always challenging. Be important that our players understand that the environment is something that you don't have to worry about. You got to worry about how you play. And sometimes that's easier said than done, especially with young players. But we'll prepare for it, and we're excited to go play. These are the games you come to Georgia to play in. So I'm excited for these guys.
If that's not the marquee matchup of the weekend, then maybe try this one on for size. We've got Texas A&M battling Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish came up just short against the University of Miami, and certainly are looking for a bounce back going into this one. But they got a tough road to hoe here with Texas A&M. Aggies are a good team as well. Here's Marcus Freeman previewing the matchup, looking for the team to get better as things go forward.
Kind of my message to the team over the past week, and I'll kind of share with you, is delayed gratification. And I said it's a difficult thing to really understand and to talk about, especially when you don't get the outcome you want. Outside of our building, you're evaluated off one thing, and that's wins and losses. But inside the building, we must continue to be mature enough to understand that the momentarily success or failure is not what the goal is. Our goal and our focus has to be to reach our full potential. And that takes understanding delayed gratification. The first thing you want to do after you lose is go play again. You want to show everybody that we're good. We got a good team. But we didn't get that opportunity this week, obviously, with a bye. But that shouldn't be where our focus is. Our focus must continue to be on improving, elevating, and doing the things it takes to get our program closer to its full potential.
And if Notre Dame wins this week, they're right back where they want to be, which is likely inside the top 6 or 7 in the college football poll. Meanwhile, the Florida Gators jumped into the poll and then out of the poll right before the season and are now out. They lost to USF last week at home, and so now their challenge is, okay, go to number 3, LSU, and take out the Tigers. Well, they've got a chance to do it and jump back into the top 25, but it won't be easy. And nobody under more pressure right now than Billy Napier, the head coach of the Florida Gators. He gave his 2 cents on the upcoming matchup against the Tigers.
LSU has a really good football team and a veteran quarterback, really unique skill on offense, dynamic returners, and a defense that's been retooled through the portal. Some younger players that are a year older, and obviously on tape here, just 2 games in, you can see there's a ton of talent there. So Coach Kelly has put together a good football team. We know that going on the road in this league is challenging, and it's one that, I think our players get excited about going to play in these types of venues. There's something about being a competitor and going into somebody else's house and it being you versus them. And I think we're building momentum towards that. We're excited about the challenge of playing this team. So,
of course, Thursday night, it all gets back going again in both pro and college football. The marquee game Thursday night in college football is North Carolina State taking on Wake Forest, where NC State 7.5-point favorites going into that game. All right, coming up next, Joe Pisapia joins us to recap the latest in fantasy football. Stay tuned.
sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Matthew Golden, one of my favorite prospects coming out of Texas. He had an incredible game against Arizona last year in the college football playoffs. Just, big touchdown after big touchdown, big moment after big moment. I loved him all year. And I was a little, skeptical at first, like, okay, well, it's kind of a crowded wide receiver room. And guess what? It's getting less crowded because everybody's hurt in Green Bay. Matthew Golden is the truth. He's the only guy healthy enough to play.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Donnie, the season is 6 months, 5 if you check out in September. You're going to have a bad month. The Yankees had a horrible month. That is true. But beyond that, their regular season looks okay. They're going to win their 90 games or maybe a little bit more and get to the postseason. What is everybody freaking out about?
Everybody freaks out. It's a Yankee tax and a Yankee fan tax as well, where every single season you enter into the equation going like, it's championship or bust.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember these names: AZ Fudd, Olivia Miles, Lauren Betts. Depending on who wins that lottery, that's going to depend on who goes one. If Washington wins, it's Fudd. She's from the area. If Dallas wins, they're going to bring Fudd to play with, obviously, Paige. If Minnesota wins, I think they go Miles with the point. If Seattle wins, they go with Miles, and the same thing with Chicago.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Hopefully you got off to a good start in fantasy football in week 1. As for me, that would be a no. But for a lot of you, hopefully it was a yes. It's a long season. Let's bring in Joe Pisapia of Fantasy Pros and, of course, Fantasy Sports Today to talk about the beginning of this very long fantasy football season. What's going on, Joe? Great to have you back here on NewsWire. We do not have a lot of time here on the show, so let's dive into it. Let's go over the winners in fantasy football in week 1. And I had one of these guys and still lost. Emeka Egbuka, I get 4 for 67 and 2 touchdowns and still lose. I guess you could probably guess who my quarterback and wide receiver were if that was the case. You just close your eyes and you can predict it by the end of this segment. Packers offense, 3 touchdowns. They look great. Travis Etienne out of nowhere with 143 yards and 3 touchdowns. So good that they traded another running back on the team this past week. I'm guessing that was partially the reason. So let's go over the winners first.
Well, look, the Travis Etienne, I will take offense to the out of nowhere. He was RB3 2 years ago in fantasy football. So last year he was hurt. He was never healthy the entire season. And I think the process that I had this offseason was if everyone is buying back in on Christian McCaffrey coming back and being an RB1 again, then why do we not say the same thing about Travis Etienne? He got a new head coach, a coach whose style matches up very well with his style of play. And here we are, 1 game into the season. Now, granted, it was against Carolina Panthers defense. Against the run, they are terrible. Look for all the James Conner props this week. I can tell you that right now, all the overs. But at the same time, it was a very good performance and good enough where Tank Bigsby gets dealt to the Eagles just a day later. And now we're in a situation where Bashal Tutin will work, but it's Travis Etienne's backfield. He's in the last year of his contract. They're going to burn and churn him most likely. So big win for him. Jordan Love looked very healthy. I wish all his receivers were, but he's making the most of it, and that's very good. The Packers defense looks very good as well. The more Micah Parsons is going to play next week, that's even better. And then, look, when you're just looking around, Egbuka is a star. He is going to be a league winner. And sometimes losing in week 1 is a good thing, Craig. There's a lot of weird stuff, a lot of anomalies that happen in week 1. But I would say consistently, if you at least get guys on your team that look like they're the people you invested in, if you had Joe Burrow or if you had Dak Prescott as your quarterback, things will turn around. I wouldn't cry too much. I'm pretty sure Joe Burrow and Emeka Egbuka will both perform well this year. And
so you got the quarterback right. So now you just need to get the wide receiver right that I had too. It's easy.
Did you have the Chase Burrow?
There you go. Hello. Okay, so I lose. Yeah. So I lose.
I think it'll work out for you the next couple.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried. Yeah. I mean, it was an easy loss for me once I saw the outcome of that game. All right, so now here's where the concern comes in for the week 1 fantasy losers. Now, if you had Russell Wilson even in a flex or 2 quarterback, that's on you, right? Like, I mean, you were silly enough to believe that there would be a chance. Already talked that he's going to lose his gig, and he will within 2 or 3 weeks. The Dolphins' offense, quite frankly, Joe, I don't know what to make of this. It was stunning that they could get absolutely nothing going against the Colts defense that was passable at least to get through. And it definitely looks like Kenneth Walker is in a timeshare, to say the very least. So maybe a little bit of a bump for Charbonnet, but I don't even know that there really is. It feels like Seattle's offense is just going to mix the two, and you're going to be guessing all season long on those two guys.
Yeah, look, I thought the Dolphins were dysfunctional and they would be bad this year, but I didn't think they were going to get blown out by the Colts in week 1 bad. Like, I don't think anybody thought that. Neither did Vegas, too. When you look at the line, they thought this game was going to be pretty tight. It was not. Now, look, they have the Patriots at home this week. You would think they get back to running the football, get back to some basics here. Tua did not look great in this game at all. You can make the case at this point, too. Like, at one point, do you want to start looking at other guys? Do you want to get a look at Zach Wilson in this offense at some point? The Tyreek Hill situation continues to be one that is a negative. So the Dolphins were just absolutely awful. Russell Wilson was also awful, but again, we don't have time to throw the ball in the pocket. That is a problem for Russell Wilson. And until Thomas is healthy, they're probably not going to have that. But keep an eye on that Thomas injury on the offensive line, too, because until he is healthy, you really want to be careful about putting Jackson Dart into that scenario. You want Jackson Dart to get off to a good start of his career, so you want to make sure the offensive line is as tight as it could possibly be and as healthy as it can be, so pay attention to that as well. And then the Ken Walker situation in Seattle, I think this was surprising to a lot of people. I wasn't a big Ken Walker guy coming into this year, but they did tell us that Zach Charbonnet was going to have a role, and my goodness, he sure did. So we'll see if this carries over. It could also just be a week 1 anomaly, right, where it was a game plan situation here where it just worked out for Charbonnet better. But if you invested early in Ken Walker, there's a lot of reason to be concerned right now. I wouldn't be jumping off the cliff or dropping him or anything like that. But I do think it's a situation where you got to look for some insurance at the running back position if you do have Walker.
Dolphins only had 200 total yards, by the way, in that game, and most of them were late in the game. Really disappointing performance for them going in. All right, so the waiver wire going into this week, some people have waivers where they have to choose if they want to use it on a player that's available this week, or even where they could buy the player, so to speak, with the free agent acquisition. It just depends on the kind of league you're playing in. But here are some of the names. The easiest one on the board is Hollywood Brown, because you would make the assumption that if Worthy is out, that Brown would be the guy to get. But we've been doing this with the Chiefs for 5 years, Joe, and this never works. But yeah, go ahead, try Brown, I guess, this week. It just never works, whoever it is. Sampson, he played very well for the Browns. Benson, who I love a lot later in the year, have him everywhere. Hopeful that works out at some point. Tillman, really good for the Browns too. Big target for Joe Flacco. And Quentin Johnson looked fantastic in week 1, even with Keenan Allen and with the other wide receivers that they have, and McConkey too. So I think that at least 3 of these are very well pickups going into, and maybe even starting going into week 2.
Well, Sampson and Tillman were 2 players that we were talking about on our show on Sunday mornings for the last 2 weeks. Pick them up for free. We talked about it the last draft weekend too. Just draft them. They're your last round picks pretty much. You can probably get these guys. But Sampson looks like by far the most dynamic runner in this backfield. Jerome Ford's just a guy. And Quinshon Judkins, we still don't know when he's going to play, okay? Just because he signed his contract. Remember, he missed all of training camp. He was at OTAs, but he's still going to face league disciplinary action at some point. So he's going to miss some time most likely this year. So, I mean, week 8, maybe that's when Quinshon Judkins can make an impact in fantasy potentially. And I don't think that's overstating it. And even when he does, it doesn't mean Dylan Sampson goes away. And Cedric Tillman, I think, fits the style of Joe Flacco much better than Jerry Jeudy does. And we've seen that in the past, and we saw it again on display. Joe Flacco likes to throw the ball downfield and be aggressive. Cedric Tillman's more that guy. And you see, in the past it was Njoku over the middle, but this time it was Harold Fannin too. So if you're looking for tight ends because, you have an injury to George Kittle, there's a couple other tight end injuries that are creeping up all over. Brock Bowers' health is a little questionable this week. Fannin is definitely a guy to look at. Brenton Strange, another tight end to look at as well. You mentioned Quentin Johnston. Look, we've been down this road before with Quentin Johnston, but he's also never been this motivated either. He's in a scenario where they did draft Trey Harris. They did bring in Keenan Allen. So it's amazing what a little competition for your job might do to a guy. And it wasn't like at TCU he wasn't a good player. Right? Quentin Johnston was a really incredible player in college, but it's never translated to the pros. I'm not saying to empty the fab budget on him, but I think it's a player that if you're light at wide receiver, you'd rather have. I think Tillman, personally, I'd rather have over Quentin Johnson, despite the 2 touchdown performance. And coming back to Hollywood Brown, another guy to talk about here, Hollywood Brown is a little trappy. And what I mean by that is at some point, you're going to get Rushy Rice back. At some point, Xavier Worthy's going to be healthy again. So if you have one of those 2 players, I think Hollywood Brown makes a little bit more sense to invest in, maybe even pay a little bit of a premium, because you don't want to go the month of September light at wide receiver. And Hollywood Brown is going to get some run, but he is fragile. He is on a time clock as well, where eventually I think the Hollywood Brown usefulness runs out on that shot clock. So keep that in mind when you're bidding. It's only week 1. Let's not go crazy. There's nobody here to empty the fab, budget on completely.
Right.
There's nobody you're going, it's 50%. But you did mention Trey Benson and the fact that he did work as much as he did. This is something where you want to keep an eye on this. Week 1, a lot of backfields will work in tandem because guys aren't up to 100%. They don't have that game stamina yet. So that's not an odd thing to see. If we see it in week 2, I think that's even more telling. So I would be ahead of the curve picking up Benson if you can as well.
Yeah, and if you need a tight end, you mentioned Strange and maybe even the 49ers backup if you have George Kittle. Real quick before we go, this is my biggest regret in draft day. I thought I was going to get Tyler Warren. Somebody picked him I would have picked him 3 rounds early. Somebody picked him like 5 rounds early. Outside of Bowers, is there anybody else you would start at tight end over Warren, Joe? Honestly.
Yeah, still McBride. But look, Tyler Warren, and you're 100% right, at the end of draft season, his ADP went flying up, and with good reason, because of, shows like ours, Greg.
All right, we'll be back. We'll go.
Want to play roulette? Here's a tip. European roulette has a lower house edge than American style. The lower the house edge, the better shot you have at winning. Most online casinos offer European roulette. So, if I were you, I'd get spinning. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Like it or not, 18-year-olds dropped with a whole heck of a lot of money in there. Boy, yeah. I tell you, it changes people, Donnie, and it's a new reality that we better get used to in college football because look at the kid from UCLA, former Tennessee quarterback, making millions of dollars. You really think he cares? They got absolutely embarrassed and trounced.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Dallas Cowboys losing that pass rush, losing another big impact player on the defensive side, all this does is make me like Dak Prescott more and CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens more, because what we talked about all offseason, right, Matt, which is, hey, when Dak is healthy, he is a top 5 fantasy quarterback, and the defense we think is okay, but we think they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. Now I definitely think there's going to be a lot more shootouts.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
So game 1, I already made a mistake. I put my touchdown prop bets in hours ago. When you and I started talking before kickoff, I got so excited and I bet him again without even thinking that I already did it.
Oh, I
was like, yeah, Jalen Hurts. I was like, and then I was like, wait, I think I already did this. And I scrolled down. I was like, yeah, you already did do this. And I was like, oh, it's okay. That's okay.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Brad Thomas is with us to break down the latest in the National Football League, maybe look at some early props and some running backs here on the show as well. Great to have Brad back on the show. Brad, as we catch up, let's get started and take a look at the running back position in the National Football League, and maybe a bit of a surprise to some to see Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt actually deliver on a lot of people's thought. Like he went from this nice little sleeper player in props and in fantasy going into the season to a guy that a lot of people felt was like being overdrafted and overhyped. And that definitely played itself out in the first quarter of that game with Washington. And then all of a sudden, the guy took off in the second half. So I guess I would ask you this, is what we see right there the future at running back for the Commanders?
Absolutely. There's a reason you got rid of Brian Robinson Jr., and it wasn't Chris Rodriguez Jr., it was because old Bill. And what's so fascinating and fantastic is a lot of us analysts who spend all of this time analyzing college football players that go to the NFL, that journey, when we are right and we nail something, it's exciting. I took his touchdown last week. It was plus 240. And by the time Chris Rodriguez got announced out, it was already steamed to plus 100. And I think the books are a little defensive, right? Because they have his line set at 40 for rushing this week, but it's juiced to the over. I think he's going to get the bulk of the carries. He outsnapped every rookie running back. And it's a big difference between him and Austin Eckler. Not only is Austin Eckler getting long in the tooth, but you want someone who can really smash it between the tackles. And that's exactly what old Bill provides.
Yeah, he definitely surprised me. I was one of those that thought way too much steam on him. As, of course, after the trade, I was like, okay, this is too much, but it turned out to be correct. All right, Ashton Genty went up against a really tough defense in week 1. So I guess we shouldn't be all that surprised because I think, honestly, very similar, Brad, to a guy like his name was Barry Sanders. I think a lot of numbers are going to look like this over the course of his career. 19 carries, 38 yards, and 1 touchdown. But you know what's missing is like the next week he does that, except for he has a 70-yard touchdown in there. This is the kind of player that he's going to be, Brad. I think that he's going to have some weeks where he does very little and some weeks where he wins you a week.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case. But if you watched him from down to down standpoint, you could tell that it's there, right? Like in the beginning of the game, he was ripping off 7-6 yards at a time, kind of started to stack the box when they realized that Geno wasn't going to shred them down the field, which made it a little bit more difficult. But he absolutely has that juice. And on that touchdown run, it was still a really fun, I think it was like a 4 or 5 yard touchdown run, really tough running right there. I'm excited on him. I'm really interested to see what the books do with his price, right? His number for a touchdown was really interesting because it opened at even money. By the time kickoff rolled around, it was minus 140, which doesn't seem like a lot, but for the starting running back to move by almost 50 cents between 2 hours, it's a really big jump. Now he plays against a team that I think is a little bit better for him to score a touchdown than the Patriots' good D line, but I don't know what to do with his rushing yards. I'm probably going to stay away from Genty because he'll be just a popular pick and overvalued for much of the season.
Yeah, feels that way. Why this trade, by the way, yesterday with Jacksonville and Philadelphia? I'm trying to make sense of this, that teams didn't realize that they needed help and one team didn't realize they had a running back crowded room. I'm going to guess, Brad, based on me covering sports and being a reporter as long as I have, that they had this deal worked out like months ago and just never did it and then pulled the trigger. This doesn't, like, some team just doesn't make a call and they do it. They talk about it, and then eventually it happens. So what is Philadelphia seeing here in Bigsby that they've wanted him clearly so bad here for a couple of months? And why did Jacksonville wait so long to make this deal?
Yeah, I don't think it was any shock at all, especially as someone who was on Bigsby props because you heard Combs speak highly of him in the offseason. His number was around 9.5 for carries, and he ripped off a couple big ones early. I mean, not early, but early when he started to get some shine. So it was about late third quarter. And it just felt that they're very protective of him, right? Like he had 2 really good runs, and then they're like, well, let's not get him long in the tooth. He only carried the ball 5 times. I knew that someone from that backfield was going to have to leave that team, right? With ETN, 2 in LaQuint Allen and Bigsby. It was just crowded, too much talent. And then on the other side, you have the Eagles who know they had this hole. Bigsby can fill it. You don't need Bigsby to be the down-to-down back. You need him to be a spell back. He's going to be durable. One thing that kind of does concern me about Bigsby is I don't want to say his burst. That's not the right to say it, but yards after contact's not as high as I'd like it to be. But when you're spelling a guy like Saquon Barkley, you don't need to be Saquon Barkley. You just need to be serviceable, and I think he'll be more than that.
Yeah, we'll see where his props land. They also have Will Shipley there and S.J. Dillon, but clearly, they had Kenneth Gainwell in the past. They really didn't have a Gainwell. Now it seems like maybe they have one in Bigsby. We will see. Okay, so the 49ers are the team leaving week 1 with the most injuries, and Christian McCaffrey's not one of them. But they already have Brandon Ayuk out. We knew that. And then all of a sudden, they exit the game with George Kittle being out for weeks. And then, news to me, by the way, Brock Purdy's hurt all of a sudden. I watched every game, Brad, to the point where I was getting a headache on the red zone Sunday night. I mean, it's been a while since I've sat on the couch for 7 hours like that. Jawan Jennings got hurt too. I mean, there's no mulligans in the NFL, right? Like, is Purdy going to even play this week? This is crazy stuff.
I know Purdy has a two body part injury, but that's football, right? Like, is he going to tough it out? You know, it's kind of funny because I think Shanahan could say, we stole game one. We weren't supposed to win away at Seattle. Are we going to just say, hey, we're going to punt this? We're going to sit Jennings. Kittle's already out. Sit Purdy and see what happens. Let the chips fall where they may. Maybe you can't. Christian McCaffrey showed that he still has some juice. He can win you football games. This team is tough, though, right? Ricky Parasol, Kendrick Bourne will be the two players that they're going to rely on heavily in the pass game. Luke Farrell, I think, caught a touchdown in the last game, too. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it is very, very scary for this 49ers team.
Yeah. Did you think, in watching McCaffrey, did you think he's okay? I thought so, especially catching the ball out of the backfield. He caught it and immediately was like down the field quick, right? Felt good about that,
I thought
right?
he was fine. He's obviously going to lose a step, right, dealing with nagging injuries, but I thought he was more than serviceable.
Yeah, I thought so too. All right, so we've got some games going into this week. What are you looking at early in the week, Brad, before we get to the NFL on Thursday night?
Yeah, this is an exciting week. I want to just talk about this. I took the Green Bay Packers to win the NFC North. I think at minus 120, it was plus 250 before the game started. They are clearly the class of the NFC North. The Bears are not the team that everyone thought they'd be with Ben Johnson, and it looks like the Lions miss Ben Johnson.
Yeah, it could be the case, although Green Bay may be just that good. I think that's possible
Yeah.
too. All right, Brad, thanks again for coming on the show and really appreciate it. And we'll catch up again next week. Thanks again.
Everything's done.
Matthew Golden, one of my favorite prospects coming out of Texas. He had an incredible game against Arizona last year in the college football playoffs. Just, big touchdown after big touchdown, big moment after big moment. I loved him all year. And I was a little, skeptical at first, like, okay, well, it's kind of a crowded wide receiver room. And guess what? It's getting less crowded because everybody's hurt in Green Bay. Matthew Golden is the truth. He's the only guy healthy enough to play.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
At the moment, you will not be able to do a bet on the television set. However, Emily made it very clear that's what we ultimately want to do, and we may do it sooner than later, where you will be able to put a sports bet on the service through your smart TV set with your remote control or with your voice, especially if a service like Alexa Plus, which is scheduled to go on Amazon Fire TV sets and other smart TV sets, actually happens.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We were just talking about the San Francisco 49ers. They make a pretty big move this morning, cutting their kicker, who they drafted in the third round. Jake Moody has been released. Third round pick. They took a kicker. It didn't work out. I'm going to guess that's the last time any team takes a kicker in the early rounds of the NFL draft. I mean, if the lesson isn't learned this time, you do it later on, you end up with somebody named Cam Little, who ends up being the best kicker in the NFL in week one. We'll see. We'll see what the future holds. All right, what does the future hold for sports betting and fantasy sports? Well, let's check in with our friends at Front Office Sports. They did a really cool interview, ended up talking to Jake Paul and also Joey Levy, the founders of Better, B-E-T-R. which is a sports betting and fantasy sports company. Micro betting is their category, and that's what they discussed, and also talked about the future of Jake Paul in the boxing ring as well. Take a listen.
So here to talk all about the gambling space as well as the latest in his boxing career is Jake Paul, co-founder of Better, as well as Joey Levy, founder and CEO of Better. Gentlemen, great to have both of you guys here. Joey, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit more about the new and revamped features that people can see right now over on Better.
Yeah, sure. Great to be here. Appreciate you having us on. So yeah, just in time for the start of the football season, we've totally revamped our Better Picks product, which is a fantasy pick'em app where you could pick multiple players for multiple teams based on accumulated player statistics and win cash prizes. And we launched this product just about 2 years ago, and industry reports are already having us as being the fourth largest operator in this industry, despite being only 2 years old and this being a multi-billion-dollar market. So we've made a lot of progress already, and we're really excited about some of the new features that we're rolling out. Arguably, the biggest one is we now have the highest payout multipliers in the industry. So when we launched Better Picks, we were the first to go to 100x. Most of our competition were only letting users win up to 20x. We went up to 100x. Then everybody copied us. Then we were first to go to 1000x. Then everybody copied us. Then we did 2000x. Now we have a pretty significant lead at offering 10,000x your money to customers who play on Better Picks.
And Jake, too, exactly sort of what Joey was talking about there. How do you sort of disrupt this industry when there is such a clear delineation of the DraftKings and the FanDuels and all those other ones that are up at the top there?
Yeah, we've always come in, and we're the youngest founders and operators in the business, and we've always just had a different vision and better app, better UI, better offerings, and this is why the company is also called Better. It's just better overall, and we're creating a super app. You can also play arcade all in the same app. More things to come, and so the users can switch from different game modes and different things that make it more accessible and more fun for our users, and just being able to be ahead of DraftKings and FanDuel says a lot because people just love the product. And again, only 2 years in, and we've already accomplished this major feat, and it's just a testament to the team and what we have going on.
Jake, I want to move to boxing here. I'm curious, you got your big fight coming up on November the 14th in Atlanta against Tank Davis, but there's a lot of concern if this fight is even going to happen. Is it going to happen, and are you nervous about it?
Yeah, 100%. It's going to happen. It's scheduled, slated. Everything's booked. People always make rumors up about my fights and have a lot to say, but that's why there's always so much attention and why I do the biggest fights. So there's always going to be the critics, but we're ready to deliver an amazing card on November 14th, and it's definitely going to be my toughest test to date. Tank is a pound for pound fighter, ranked top 5. The most experienced, undefeated, knocks everyone out, very quick, very, has a lot more experience and skill than me. But I believe that I'm more athletic and stronger, and I'm going to be able to knock him out.
Jake, also, we've had a lot of people in the MMA world who are very excited about this UFC deal that they've got with Paramount. I'm curious, if you were Dana White, what would you do?
In terms of what,
in terms of growing this with the $1 billion that they're going to be getting from CBS.
Yeah, no, I think it's great on many levels, and flattered that they copied MVP in moving into the streaming world, and there's so many issues with piracy, and so it's great for the fans who are going to be able to get more fights and be able to tune in for a cheaper cost, and I think it's going to grow the whole combat sports world. And they obviously copied our model and going, we were the first to go into streaming and to Netflix. And so just flattered that a company that's been doing it for 30 years is following in my footsteps.
Aram Leighton from Just Baseball joins us next. Stay on the grid. We'll be right back.
Matthew Golden, one of my favorite prospects coming out of Texas. He had an incredible game against Arizona last year in the college football playoffs. Just, big touchdown after big touchdown, big moment after big moment. I loved him all year. And I was a little, skeptical at first, like, okay, well, it's kind of a crowded wide receiver room. And guess what? It's getting less crowded because everybody's hurt in Green Bay. Matthew Golden is the truth. He's the only guy healthy enough to play.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
At the moment, you will not be able to do a bet on the television set. However, Emily made it very clear that's what we ultimately want to do. And we may do it sooner than later, where you will be able to put a sports bet on the service through your smart TV set with your remote control or with your voice, especially if a service like Alexa Plus, which is scheduled to go on Amazon Fire TV sets and other smart TV sets, actually happens.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Coming up in 30 minutes, Just Baseball takes over the airwaves here at SportsGrid. Let's bring in Rob Layden for the latest in baseball. They got a great show planned for you. I know they do. We'll talk to him about that as well. But first, let's get into what's going on right now. Rob, great to have you back here on NewsWire. Appreciate it. Let's dive into one of the best teams in baseball, Philadelphia Phillies. And, aside from the record and aside from the fact that they're probably going to win the East, they're probably going to go deep, I mean, this was the best sign for them in a really long time. The best piece of news was getting this start, I think, yesterday from Aaron Nola, who, traditionally speaking, was going to go into every postseason with the Phillies in the last 5-10 years as their number 1 or number 2 starter. This year he's been like their number 8, but that was a great start yesterday.
And you talk about the timing too. Of course, now you know that Zach Wheeler's out for the season. That's your postseason workhorse. Now some other guys are going to need to step up. And you also just think about the other conversations that have been around the Phillies right now. It's guys that are banged up. Trey Turner getting hurt. That was such a big blow to them. And you go into this big series against the Mets where, yes, you're going to win the division, but it's still really important, I think, to keep this momentum going and make a statement. Whereas I think you could have felt the walls and the ceiling kind of cave in a little bit with losing such an important player, and then maybe a bad Nola start. So I thought this was a huge statement too. And to really outpitch, at least in a run prevention perspective, Nolan McLean, who's been so darn good, and he was good again for the Mets. What a tough loss for him to take. But to be able to match that and keep your team in it in this 1-0 win, that's got to be galvanizing for the Phillies, because you know what Nola's capable of, but you look at that 6.24 ERA even after that start, and it's like, okay, which Nola are we going to be getting here?
Yeah, one start's not going to convince anybody, but it was a good sign, to say the least, I would add. All right, so the Phillies right now are plus 330 to win the National League. They're plus 650 to win the World Series. Very clearly, they're going to have to go likely through the Dodgers, I think, to get there. Everyone just has that penciled in for the NLCS. That's not fair. The Brewers are going to fight. The Mets are going to fight. We know those teams are still going to be there. Do you have the Phillies at this point? Let's start with getting to the National League Championship Series, and then how far do you think they go from there?
I was all over it. Yeah, I really did like the Phillies to make it happen this year. You have Schwarber having this career year. It's the same group, but you also have Trey Turner having maybe the best season he's had from a WAR perspective. But now with Wheeler out, with Turner banged up, and you don't know what that situation's going to look like, it becomes a little bit murkier. But then you still look and see what Duran has done for them, the acquisition of Harrison Bader, and you can still kind of talk yourself into this team just having some magic here. But I think the National League's a gauntlet, and it's not going to be easy. The Padres, another impressive comeback win. They continue to hang around. And you mentioned everyone's penciling in the Dodgers. They've been maybe playing the worst ball of all of the teams that we're going to talk about right now. So, and even the Mets, like they're the Mets, and they were there last year. So I think the Phillies are easily a favorite, and for good reason. But if anything, they're a bit more fragile and banged up than they've been, in the last few months. And I'm interested to see how they respond to that.
Cubs, Padres, and Mets, foregone conclusion from a betting perspective to make the National League wild card. Do the Giants or Reds even stand a chance here? I mean, this little Giants run have put them at least back into the conversation. A month ago, it looked like their season was not only over, but maybe like wholesale changes coming there. Battling their way back into the mix, or just a hot streak?
I think the Giants are, and I probably wrote them off a little bit prematurely here. The Reds, man, I've wanted to believe, but that was a backbreaking loss there against San Diego, not being able to hold on to it and then losing in extra innings there. It's going to be tough, but every time I think they're about to fall out of it, they seem to fight back. But the Giants, this is a good team, right? I mean, you add Devers to the equation with Adames, who's really been great in the second half, Matt Chapman, who's been phenomenal for them, and all of a sudden you look at this offense across the board and you say they can mash. And then you look at the pitching and say, that was a bit of a question mark, but they've been getting it done. I could see them hanging around with just the star power, the veteran aspect of this team, and the fact that, I don't think they feel like they're out of it at all either. And you look up at the Mets, who have lost 3 in a row, who have just not been playing great ball over the last couple months. And even though they've got the talent once they're in the playoffs, I'm not writing them off. I don't think anybody is also ruling out the idea that the Mets could collapse and give up a playoff spot here, because, as you know, that pressure mounts quickly in New York.
In the American League, the West seems to be, I would say, sold on one team making the postseason for sure, and that would be the Houston Astros, overwhelming favorite to make the postseason. To win the division, they're only minus 180, and the reason why there's been some pullback on that, Aram, is because the Rangers have been very hot. They're up to 75 and 70 now on the season. And I guess the thing for me with the Rangers in particular is that they just have not played consistent at all. Either they've been like this, where they're unstoppable, or they play the other way, where they lose like 8 out of 9 games. So, I mean, I don't know if the downside is coming here, but if they ride this wave like they did a couple of years ago, they could find themselves, I guess, back in the World Series again.
Which is crazy, because another team that I'm like, okay, well, they must be fading now when you lose Nate Eovaldi, who had, the sub-2 ERA, and you lose Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. Like, all those guys have been on the IL. Adolis back to the IL. Evan Carter on the IL. I'm like, how are they going to do this thing? And since then, they've been red hot. And it's not like Seager's out for season. Like, he's going to come back. You think Semien will probably be able to come back pretty soon too. So you get those guys maybe for the final handful of games to push across the finish line. Wyatt Langford's doing his thing now. I can talk myself into it a little bit. I can't fully rule this team out. And, you got DeGrom still as DeGrom, and Merrill Kelly looks like a great addition for them. He's a walking quality start, and it seems like they can just hang around here. But at the same time, it just feels like the Mariners are such a more complete ball club, but that doesn't always matter, as you know, right? You just need a good 2.5 week stretch here to finish the year.
Yeah, definitely so. And right now, they have a shot, I would say, both teams to win it all, because that's what it is. It is a tournament. By the way, the Red Sox right now in the American League wildcard chase are right there. I think that they could win the division. I think that it would take a lot to overcome the Blue Jays, who have played great baseball, but they made some news today, Aram. I guess Dustin May is going on the IL. Unfortunately for him, again, how many times has this been? I can't even count. And they called up a pitcher, a left-handed pitcher. I don't know if you know anything about this guy, Connolly, at all.
Yeah, Connolly early is interesting, and I'm interested to see like how much leash they give him. Of course, they brought up Peyton Tolley, and he was fantastic in his first outing. A little bit of a welcome to the big leagues in the next one. I think with early, like, it's really good stuff, and it's a fastball that's ticked up this year. It's a really, really good changeup and a good slider, and he's coming off of an outing where in AAA he just struck out 10 over 6 innings. When he's on, he's got a chance to give you a quality start every single time and potentially dominate. I think at times the command can be a little bit of a challenge for him, but I think they're riding the hot hand here and trying to make a push. And I'm just generally interested to see what this Red Sox lineup looks like without Roman Anthony. It's crazy to put a lot of weight on a rookie, but the dynamic that Roman brought to that lineup as a power hitting leadoff guy that gets on base at a high clip, I do feel like they're feeling that loss a little bit.
I think it's fair to say that Garrett Crochet has been the best Red Sox player this season. Is Aroldis Chapman the most important player on the Red Sox this year? I mean, you always want the starter. I get that. But Chapman, not only is it dialing it back to a decade ago, I mean, this guy has been the most unhittable pitcher in all baseball this year.
Quite literally, right? I mean, he had not given up a hit for what 50-something plate appearances. Like, it's just crazy stuff like that. I don't know if we've seen a stretch like this in a very, very long time. And you could have made the case, especially with Justin Slayton out, with some of the injuries they've had to the back end of that bullpen, that there was a lot of unknown of like, who's going to shut the door? How much trust do you have in the back end of this bullpen? And right now, I got as much trust in this bullpen because of Aroldis Chapman as just about anybody. If you got him in the ninth, game's good as over right now.
And that you can't say that about a lot of players anymore in the big leagues. All right, so let's do this, Aram. Let's take a quick break here on NewsWire. We'll come back and we will have a larger discussion about some of the other players around the big leagues. And then, of course, we'll dive into a preview of the upcoming show, which is at 1:30 Eastern today. Also, if you want to learn more about our programming, about Just Baseball or any of the other shows that we have here on SportsGrid, you can download the SportsGrid app. Just take out your phone and scan this QR code. It's available for both iOS and Android. And one really cool tool that the app has is that if you're placing bets on football all season long, you can track them within the app as well. So we'll return talking more baseball. We'll continue with Rob Layton next, so don't go away.
Matthew Golden, one of my favorite prospects coming out of Texas. He had an incredible game against Arizona last year in the college football playoffs. Just, big touchdown after big touchdown, big moment after big moment. I loved him all year. And I was a little, skeptical at first, like, okay, well, it's kind of a crowded wide receiver room. And guess what? It's getting less crowded because everybody's hurt in Green Bay. Matthew Golden is the truth. He's the only guy healthy enough to play.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
At the moment, you will not be able to do a bet on the television set. However, Emily made it very clear that's what we ultimately want to do. And we may do it sooner than later, where you will be able to put a sports bet on the service through your smart TV set with your remote control or with your voice, especially if a service like Alexa Plus, which is scheduled to go on Amazon Fire TV sets and other smart TV sets, actually happens.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
All right, welcome back. Aram Layton is with us. We'll talk some baseball here, but we do have some big football news, so let's get to that real quick. George Kittle, ESPN announces, and the NFL Network too. It just seems like that's the way it works. They're on some chat or something. They both break the news at the same time. George Kittle placed on IR at tight end, so he's going to miss the next 4 games for the San Francisco 49ers. So get ready for some backup action early on in the season there. All right, let's bring back Aram to dive into the latest in Major League Baseball. Again, justbaseball.com is their great website, and they have a show on SportsGrid, which comes your way in 15 minutes from now. So Aram, a few years ago, and I do mean a few, back to 2020, 2021, there was this young prospect that was ranked, on all the websites, top 3, top 4, number 1, number 2, is named Joe Adele on the Angels, Los Angeles Angels. And Adele was up and down, minors, majors, would come up, hit a few home runs, strike out a million times, go back to the minors. He is one of the hottest players right now in Major League Baseball, and he's having the best season for anybody on the Angels. He's on pace potentially to hit 40 home runs this season. Did he realize his potential, do you think, at this point? Is he now a player that we could look back on 4 or 5 years ago and say, hey, this is now the guy that we thought he was going to be? Because if you remember back then, he was a can't miss prospect.
Oh my gosh. I mean, he was, when you looked at the tools and the performance in the minor leagues and everything that he was doing, it seemed like at the very least he was going to do something, I think not this significant, but be able to run into a lot of home runs and give you some value otherwise. I think the biggest surprise to me, and now I think when you're slugging like this, it doesn't matter as much, has been how poor the defense has been. And it's kind of made it even more challenging for him to provide value from like a WAR perspective. But as you mentioned, he's going to hit 40 home runs this year. So now the defense being subpar doesn't matter as much. We're seeing with the metrics now that are available why he was such an elite prospect as well. He's got some of the best bat speed in Major League Baseball, and that's really hard to teach. So once you have that, it's like, how do you leverage that? How do you turn that into production? And that seemed to be the challenge for him. He really struggled against breaking balls. Even at points, despite the bat speed, was struggling to catch up to velocity. This year, he's been hammering fastballs, but on top of that, finally productive against breaking balls. And I think that's been a huge wrinkle for him as well, having 12 homers against breaking balls, but the consistency there, just not swinging and missing nearly as much against those. This has been huge. And I think he's going to be a volatile player by nature, especially when you don't walk too much. And maybe that's the next phase to his game. But anytime you have the ability to hit 30 plus homers, you're going to have plenty of value. And I think at still just 26 years old, by the way, we talk about prospect fatigue all the time. He's still young. And I think young enough to be able to say, hey, he figured it out now. And I hear nothing but great things about the way he goes about his business.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize defensively how poor he was. As I see, I don't even think he's going to have 2 WAR with those offensive numbers at the end of the season. That tells me his defensive numbers, you're right, must be poor. Before we get to the MVP vote, let's tie a bow on the Angels, by the way. This is a team that really nobody talks about all that much because it just feels like it's the same recipe around every single year. They have the money to spend, so they go out and do it. It doesn't work out, and then they rinse, repeat, and try it continually. The good news for them is the first half of the season looked really good. And then Ron Washington, of course, had to leave the team with some medical issues, and they just completely fell apart in the second half of the season. And you talk about metrics for a team, I think their run differential is among the very worst in Major League Baseball. What does the future hold for the Angels?
I mean, it just seems like purgatory, right? Because they're never going to sell. They're always going to do these unique buys where it's players that you think make them better, but does it move the needle? I don't know. And you kind of get stuck in this middle ground. And I think realizing the new norm for Mike Trout, who is still a productive player in Major League Baseball, but is I don't think anything close to what he once was. Who's carrying this team? I like a lot of the complementary pieces that they have, and clearly I think they're in a spot where they're not going to rebuild. So do they feel comfortable spending more? Do they feel comfortable continuing to just add that way? Because that's the only way where I can see this team being able to work through this thing is finally getting that Rendon contract, when they can look at that in the rearview mirror, finally getting some of those contracts off the books and trying to sign more stars, which is a proven way to not be able to succeed. But I don't really see any other way because you don't trade Kenley Jansen, who had a great year. You don't trade some of these other guys who could have got you a nice return. I do like the 1-2 punch generally of Soriano and Kikuchi at the top. I do think there's a couple prospects coming up that can do something, but I still think there are several pieces away. That said, I think this is the best they've looked in terms of young, controllable talent in a while between Neto, Ohapi, now Adele emerging. I think it's a little bit better in that regard. And Soriano with plenty of control. He's still just 26.
Yeah, the young players too, and they seem to be able to navigate prospects well. But generally speaking, they're always at the bottom as far as the rankings go for most teams in baseball. All right, so American League MVP is going to be decided here over the next couple of weeks, and not quite a toss-up because Judge is a pretty big favorite, but he's been a bigger favorite to win the MVP. And now that he's back playing right field again or the outfield again and throwing the ball, you've seen a little bit of a push. Raleigh's home runs are going to give him a chance to win this award, but Judge is minus 250, Raleigh is plus 180. I guess the better question is, what would Raleigh have to do to win it at this point, or are these odds just simply wrong?
I mean, every time I think, oh, okay, Judge is going to tie a bow on this thing, Cal does one of those little home run sprees, right? And he's got 6 home runs in his last 14 games. And I think ultimately when you look at the offensive output from Judge, and now he's kind of back doing his thing as well, where you see that OPS now pushing to the 1,100 territory. The batting average is way up there. I think it's going to be really hard to surpass. But to answer your question, I think Cal Raleigh is going to need to push north of that 60 home run threshold and really make that gap as significant as possible. And if it's 60 plus homers and you're looking at maybe a 20 home run gap, maybe voters look at that a little bit more and really talk themselves into the catching side of things. But when you look at the overall offensive output, it's really hard to turn away from a 321, 443, 656 slash line, which is what Aaron Judge is sporting right now.
I'm guessing in 1998, when McGuire ended up hitting 70 and Sosa ended up hitting 60 something, whatever it was, one of them did not win the MVP. I wonder if that's the only time in history that a guy would hit 60 home runs around in baseball and not win an MVP, right?
I can't think of another time. 60 seems to be that magic number where it's almost impossible not to win it. And again, though, that is, I think, what it was. Sosa a little bit lower on the home run output, still won the MVP. Was it because the slash line was better? What was the criteria that went into that?
Cubs were
I'm very
good.
interested.
The Cubs were good.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals were
and
not.
that might be part of it as well. But both these guys carried their teams, presumably to the playoffs. It kind of breaks my brain.
All right. Aram coming up at 1:30 on Just Baseball. We'll be right back.
I was looking at through my phone at first. I'm like, why is there such a delay? And why are we getting pitch hitters right away? Oh, the pitcher got thrown out for some reason. Maybe he hurt himself. But no, turning out and seeing a brawl was absolutely hilarious to let that one play out. Just the way it is sometimes in baseball. We don't get a lot of good fights and a lot of good brawls and anger, specifically from two teams that aren't going to the playoffs. So good on them for showing that moxie last time. But it's good to see a little bit of a brawl and a little bit of that passion here.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You're looking for JJ. You and I already discussed here. Addison's gone for a couple of games here. They don't have a number 3. Thielen, fine. You do have a nice tight end here. The running game could be solid here. Like I said, I don't think he'll have the least productive season of his career. If the question was how it should have been with the injuries, I might have said yes, because then it would be 88, 1,407. So then I might have said yes.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
If a game is on the line,
give me the Navy kicker.
Oh,
the guy's going into battle in 2 weeks. He can't make an extra point. Come on.
From a mindset perspective, I'm not. Listen, we thank them for their service. I love them. Okay.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, if you have a bet and you have an academy kicker with a field goal or an extra point, you got to hold your breath.
27 yards.
27 yards. The kid shanked it from like 30.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
The reason why I feel like Jared Goff doesn't really enter these MVP conversations. Jared Goff last year was on the team with the best record in football, threw for 4,700 yards, 37 touchdowns, and Tom was never in the race. He was never in the race because we know he's not that guy.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Top story in the NFL today. A big move for the San Francisco 49ers in terms of the injury front. George Kittle was placed on the injured list, so he's going to miss 4 games. The team also announced that a former third-round pick kicker Jake Moody has been released as well. All right, now let's get into a little college football. It's been a rough start, to say the least, for Arch Manning, a rough start for a fan of the Philadelphia Phillies, but a really good week for Joey Chestnut of the hot dog eating fame. It's time now for some last licks. All right, let's start off with Arch Manning of the Texas Longhorns. Had a better week this past week, of course, than he had in week 1 against Ohio State, but that was not the physical part as to what went in this week's game. I don't know if you caught the game because Texas had an easy one this past week, but during the game, it was pretty apparent that their quarterback, Arch Manning, was wincing a little bit when he was throwing the football. So does that mean that he could be suffering from a potential arm injury? Well, here's head coach Steve Sarkisian on that.
Arch Manning seemed to be having some throwing pains by the
According to
fourth quarter.
who?
Arch.
Arch said that to you?
No.
Oh, according to who?
It just looked like he was.
He doesn't have any.
Is there an explanation to why it looked like that?
I don't know. I've never filmed any of you guys when you're using the bathroom, so I don't know what faces you make when you're doing that.
Funny answer. Very defensive answer, I would say, from Sarkisian. Where in the world did he come up with that one? Must have thought about it before he had the press conference, because that was not planned. I think at this point, it's fair to say that not only is Arch Manning gone from the favorite to win the Heisman to like 7th, but I mean, you got to even wonder if he's going to have to go back, honestly, to Texas for another season. I mean, he just hasn't looked good. I mean, I've seen a few good throws, but all of us, by the way, have been so off on the talent thus far of this player in college football. Anybody who says that they didn't think Arch Manning was going to be a good quarterback is just lying, because I did not see that anywhere going into the college football season. Okay, the most viral baseball moment of the last few days occurred at a game that I was at in South Florida between the Philadelphia Phillies and Miami Marlins. A home run was hit. You had to have seen this by now. A home run was hit into the outfield, and a man ran over to 10 seats away from him, 15 seats away from him, and grabbed a home run ball that was hit, plucked it out, gave it to his son. There was a woman who was standing behind where the home run was hit, also reached over for the ball. She didn't get it, but ran over and got in the face of the guy and demanded that the ball was hers and to give the ball back. And the man did. Well, afterward, the Marlins made good on that. The Phillies made good on that. Harrison Bader made good on that and said, hey, sorry that this even happened to your young son. Let me give you a bat. Let me give you some balls. But what has not happened is this woman has yet to apologize for doing what she did. It appears to be that she thought that she was in the right and actually gave the middle finger to everybody around. Really bizarre scene happening in South Florida, and everybody has outed her, and there's been no apology. But right now, there is a memorabilia site that has offered $5,000 to the woman for an apology and the baseball. It's kind of funny. I don't think that this is happening. Honestly, I think that this woman must love the attention, because at this point, you have to understand she was like clearly in the wrong. It's funny that this actually happened, because when I was at the home run derby a few years ago, there was a ball that was hit. Juan Soto hit a home run, and me and my son were there, and the ball was hit right into the seat in front of me. As the ball was coming in, the woman that was sitting there got out of the way of the ball. I grabbed it, gave it to my son, and I heard her talking to her friend. That ball should have been mine. We really should. So I can relate. If a foul ball or a home run is hit and you don't get it, you lose. That's the way that it works. It's a free ball for everyone. You don't get to keep the ball. All right, finally, we got to wrap it up. Joey Chestnut ends up eating a lot. This time it is 26.5 pounds, 53 boxes of poutine to win the 2025 World Poutine Eating Championship in Toronto. There's nothing this guy that won't eat or won't do. I have never tried poutine. I know a lot of people in Canada say it's very popular there and they enjoy it. I have never tried it. Congratulations to Joey Chestnut. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks again to Bill Bender of Sporting News. Thanks to Joe Pisapia and Brad Thomas for coming on the show, and also Aram Layton as well. Thanks to our director, Luke. For my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Gonna have to take a day off tomorrow, so I'll be out, but I'll be back with you for our next football edition of NewsWire, which will be Thursday ahead of the NFL game and college football as well, and we'll have a full preview coming up of the weekend. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I'll see you back here Thursday for my next edition of NewsWire. But folks, we're back on the air, 12 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you catch the show. Simon Applebaum will be on the show. Have a great day.